Do you ever remember getting a book for Christmas?
Yes.
What was your favorite book you've ever gotten for Christmas?
Santa was not good at giving me books.
Really?
The only thing that stands out to me is the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Oh, all right. So I don't remember how old I was. I would probably be about 13.
Okay.
And I got one of the best Christmas presents I've ever received. And in fact, I think if you go out into our bookshelf there and you pull out the Chamber of Secrets, on the inside of the cover, you will see a handwritten note from my mother who gave me the Chamber of Secrets for Christmas when I was about 13 years old.
That's adorable.
But it turns out getting books for people is a little bit hard.
Yes.
Right? And so today we're going to go through a few different age groups, a few different we'll say experience levels when it comes to fantasy and science fiction, and share what books we think people may enjoy to help you as you're going through the gift giving process.
Awesome.
All right, Jay, you gonna go first here?
Yeah, okay, so I'm thinking like 13-year-old boy.
Okay, 13-year-old boy. What do you got?
Ender's Game.
Mm.
This is just a really fun book. It's sci-fi.
Okay.
You're up in space, but it doesn't feel uber spacey. It's more just like almost like you're in a school, but it's like a fighting school. But it's like a, it's just not very intense. And I'm pretty sure I read this. I might not have been 13, but I was close to 13, and I really enjoyed it. So that would be my.
I would say it's probably a little bit on the high end when it comes to a 13-year-old reading level wise. Okay. But definitely it could have been enjoyable. People may enjoy it. I'm going to counter you with probably a little bit easier of a book to read.
Yes.
This is Artemis Fowl. Artemis Fowl is a fantasy-ish series where you have a genius billionaire 12-year-old who invents ways to communicate with the fairy world, which apparently is all around us. And they use much more advanced technology than we do. And you kind of get this whole secret agent thing that goes on for about 5 books. It's really fun, probably great for around that 13-year-old range. You may actually be aging out of it a little bit there. Really easy to read, so if you have a 13-year-old maybe that struggles with reading a little bit and just wants a story to consume pretty quickly, Artemis Fowl may be the right way to go there.
Fun.
All right, so moving up a notch, what would you say if you had like a 15-year-old girl?
All right, I've got, well, funny enough, a 15-year-old girl is borrowing book number 1 right now. Actually, I think she's 14. She might be 15. This is Scarlet. It's book number 2 of the Lunar Chronicles.
Okay.
The first one is Cinder. So Cinder is a cyborg Cinderella, basically. Scarlet, if you can see, she's Little Red Riding Hood, and that's a wolf. It's really cute. The third book, you get, third book is Rapunzel. And fourth book is Snow White. So it's just like a total twist of fairy tales, which I think that alone, like you kind of know the story, so it's easy to follow. So I think it would be pretty great for that age range. And they are a little big. That's my iffy. But Cinder's like the Lunar Chronicles is fantastic, and it ends just as good as it starts.
Wow. All right. Okay. Well, I'm actually going to jump into a little heavier fantasy here, and this is not
15-year-old girl
for a 15-year-old girl.
Okay.
This is Name of the Wind. So Name of the Wind is a fantasy epic that's part of the larger Kingkiller Chronicles. There'll be 3 of these. I almost said 5. 3 of these eventually. Doors of Stone will
There's
come out.
not going to be 5 of these.
Eventually, there should be 5 of them. They're not quite done yet. This is an excellent book, and it's an excellent step up from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm assuming around 15. Kids are probably reading and enjoying Harry Potter. If you want kind of that next step, I'm not saying it's harder reading level. It's probably right around the Harry Potter range. And it clocks in about 722 pages. So it's a big one, but it's not necessarily any bigger than Goblet of Fire, Order of the Phoenix, or Half-Blood Prince, or Deathly Hallows.
This one has a slow start. I think that'd be
it does.
It just is like,
it takes a little bit to get into it. But you do have like the orphan theme there and magic and other things.
Schools.
A school for magic and wizardry. So I really think that this would be a good fit and a challenging fit around that range, right? So it's not going to be the easiest book they've ever read, that's for sure. But I think it's gripping enough that a 15-year-old would be able to make their way through it pretty well.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. What do you got next?
Thinking, okay, like 17-year-old boy.
Okay, great. So for the 17-year-old boy in your life.
This is just a must read. So you can give this to anybody, but I feel like 17, you would appreciate a lot of the different elements in here. There's a little bit of like fantasy themes in here. Like it's a little.
I can see it. I feel like some of the things there will be lost on a 17-year-old boy.
But how great of a way to learn about World War II.
I mean, yes,
than a
it is.
fantasy-ish book.
It definitely is a really interesting book. I mean, a phenomenal book. If you haven't read The Book Thief, we highly recommend it.
We highly recommend
I don't know how much 17-year-olds in general, 17-year-old boys would be interested in this.
True. The main character is a girl.
Yeah.
She's like a little kid. So, okay.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, definitely.
Just some good themes in here that I feel like it's a good way to be introduced.
If you can convince your kids to read it as a 17-year-old, definitely worthwhile.
Yeah.
I'm going a little more
Juvenile?
Juvenile is the right way to say this. A little more, I think, in the teenage brain. So this is Stormfront. This is the first of the Dresden Files series by Jim Butcher. So give you an idea, Dresden, Harry Dresden is the main character. He is a wizard in Chicago. And when I say juvenile, you definitely get strong teenage boy vibes from Harry Dresden to this entire thing.
He's a little immature.
And a little horny. I mean, that's just kind of so. I think he fits well with a 17-year-old boy.
That way.
Right. So if you have a mature 17-year-old, maybe Book Thief. If you are looking for more of an immature, just fun, enjoyable. One way to think about this is this. I feel like this is very similar in book form to the Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Is probably a good way to be able to say it. So highly recommend this. I think people of all ages would enjoy it, but I particularly think a 17-year-old boy would thoroughly enjoy it.
Okay.
All right. What do you got next?
19-year-old girl.
A 19-year-old girl. Okay.
We're going. Daughter of the Pirate King. This is by, Trisha Levenseller. I don't think I've ever looked at her name. Sorry, Trisha Levenseller.
Don't worry. We like you, Trisha. Phenomenal book.
Really good book. This is just so fun. And there's just, like, it's fast-paced, but it's also not quite like it's YA, of course, but it's not, like, the easiest book because there's in-depth characters. I don't know.
Interesting. I would have swapped that. I would have put this as your 17-year-old girl book.
I have 17-year-old boy.
Oh, boy. Okay. Either way, 17-year-old boy book. I would have gone with Book Thief for a little bit older. Yeah.
Okay, maybe
ages.
interchange those.
But I agreed. Really,
He's read
really
this
good
one.
book.
It wasn't like overly girly.
No, I liked it a lot. It was excellent. Something I love about this is right at the end when you get the acknowledgments and her kind of thanking people. She thanks her writing group at her university and her professor, whose name is Brandon Sanderson.
So that's
kind of a fun thing. Which really, I mean, Trisha Levenfeller? Is that right?
Levenfeller.
Yeah, Levenseller.
Whoops.
Trisha.
Sorry.
Trisha Levenseller.
That's Trisha.
Trisha.
That's Trisha. Hey Trisha, how do you say your name?
Yeah. Anyways, really good books. I'm excited to read the sequel that's out now.
Maybe interchange these, but both of them. I recommend both of these books.
Okay, so we're talking a 19-year-old girl here. All right, so I'm going to suggest an all-time classic in Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. Now, The Fellowship of the Ring can be a little slow, but one of the things, by the point you're at 19, I think you can handle some of the slowness in getting through it. You also probably have seen the movies, I would imagine, right? And so just hard to go wrong with something that's been thrilling people for 80 years.
That's true.
Right, so that would be my pick for a 19-year-old.
Okay.
All right, so let's mix it up a little bit. Instead of going by ages, right? So we've obviously gone through the teenage years. Let's think about it differently. What if you're new to fantasy? What would be your recommendation if this is you're wanting to get into fantasy but you don't know where to start? What are you going with?
I've got like this is an easy world. This is Skyward.
Okay.
By Brandon Sanderson. That's a good segue.
Yep.
It's a sci-fi, and it's just a teenage girl, and Spencer, she is in flight school basically, or she's like, her dream is to be a pilot, and so it's like getting into flight school and what happens in flight school with some friends.
To be clear, she's flying spaceships.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. It's not Top Gun.
Yeah, she does not live on Earth, and they are not planes. They're spaceships.
True.
Really good book though, and lots of characters, lots of fun, and it's pretty fast paced. It says the word coward a few too many times, but that's okay. That's just I would say it's a good beginner, like a newbie.
Just new jumping into fantasy?
Just because it's not like the most complex world or the most complex characters, and there's not a ton of people you need to remember, not a ton of like jargon or a ton of like politics or anything like that. So this is a fun series and not quite finished yet. So.
So interesting. I'm going to stay with Brandon Sanderson, but I'm going to level it up a little bit. My suggestion would be Mistborn.
I knew it.
So Mistborn is a phenomenal book. Great jump into fantasy if you're a newbie. Basically, it's a kind of a dystopian world where there's one man who's a god king, right? He's a lord ruler. He has kind of infinite power and abilities to do all sorts of things, and there's a crew of people that got together who decide they're going to kill him. Now, there's a whole bunch of magic around this, and a really complex and cool magic system where they drink metals, and these metals give them different abilities, like the ability to affect people's emotions, or the big thing is they're able to push and pull on metals, and so that can make them fly. It can help them in fighting, all sorts of things. Just a really fun thing with lots of different things going on here. It's also the step into the larger world of Brandon Sanderson. Yeah. And so it's a great kind of entry point as you're looking to get into fantasy, because it's not overwhelming. I think I've given this to many people who read it and enjoyed it. I think my father-in-law actually read it.
Did he really?
I think we got him to read this one.
Wow.
And people enjoyed them. It is one of those, you can see this one's been loaned out a lot. It's literally held together with tape.
It's a well-loved book.
Yeah, I'm going to need to get a new copy of this eventually. But it's just a very easy book for people to jump into, but also gets them into the epic fantasy.
Right, because it's easy, but it's not like simple.
Yes.
Like it gets a little complex, but
right, so
it starts you.
Yeah, the thing with Skyward is sometimes it may be too simple.
Yeah.
Right? One of the things people like about fantasy is these large overarching stories and things.
So true.
And so this really allows you to get into that without kind of the intimidation factor.
Yeah.
All right, what about the other side of the coin?
Okay, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I'm just wondering, if you're a veteran of fantasy, what would you recommend for somebody that maybe they haven't gotten into? You know, they've done Lord of the Rings, they've done some of these other things. Maybe they've done like A Song of Ice and Fire. What are you throwing out that they could jump into here?
I can tell you what's missing, assuming you haven't read it already. And it is worth it. This is Eye of the World, which is the first of the Wheel of Time series.
It is excellent.
And I'm not finished. I'll say that to start off. But it's good, and it is worth your time, and it is huge. It might take you 15 years. It's going to take me 15 years, but it's really good. It is not, I wouldn't say it's beginner just because it's so vast. There's so much going on. Huge world, tons of characters, tons of different politics and different themes to it. So, but if you're feeling comfortable in fantasy, I think this is worth picking up.
I mean, I can't echo that sentiment enough. The Wheel of Time is my favorite fantasy series, which is saying something, as I've read a lot of fantasy series.
Yes, yes.
There's some good contenders up there. I mean, Song of Ice and Fire is great. Lord of the Rings is phenomenal. The Robin Hobb Elderling series is fantastic. And even the series I'm going to talk about in just one second is high on my list. But nothing really compares to the Wheel of Time. And in fact, I think somewhere on that book there's a quote that says, Robert Jordan perfects the world Tolkien began to reveal. I think that's the best explanation of it. If you like Tolkien, if you like that type of epic fantasy, the Wheel of Time is a phenomenal 15-course dinner for you to enjoy there. And if you like Brandon Sanderson and you like Stormlight, some of his things there, you can go back to the Wheel of Time and get a lot of where that was kind of born, for lack of a better word, where a lot of those ideas percolated, the inspiration for a bunch of these. And of note, in case someone is listening to this that doesn't know, Brandon Sanderson actually finishes the Wheel of Time series as Robin Jordan passed away. And so Brandon Sanderson kind of got his big break by finishing that series. And ends phenomenally. It's easily the best series Brandon Sanderson's ever finished.
Cool.
So maybe the best fantasy series ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But speaking of good fantasy series, though, if you're a veteran and you want to jump into something a little harder, I would recommend this. This is The Blade Itself. It's the first of the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. This would fall in what we would call grim, dark fantasy, right? So if you think about Eye of the World, or Wheel of Time, you think about Lord of the Rings, you think about Stormlight, some of these type of things. These are ones that you know things are going to end out okay, right? It's kind of that classic arc. These, on the other hand, are tragedies, and they are they can be dark and they can be gritty, and they're interesting, and you have immensely flawed characters. And the interesting thing is you'll learn part of the way through this that there are no protagonists in this series. It's just a bunch of awful people stuck in a situation, and you can't help but rooting for the people you think are really awful at the beginning and the people you think are great you end up hating, and it just pulls strings and emotions that you don't necessarily know that you'll have there, but all in a very interesting and complex world that really doesn't give you much. you have to work to understand it, which I think is one of the interesting things where you really have to be a veteran fantasy reader, because it's not going to hold your hand through this process. It's just going to jump you in the middle of a conflict, and you're going to have to catch up along the way. But it is totally worth it if you're a veteran reader here. All right, great. What's the last group you want to tackle here?
Last group that I'm thinking of is basically if you're just new to reading in general. Like if you don't have a lot of books, or you're buying a gift for someone who doesn't read a ton, or you want to get them a book, that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Yep. So basically, it's the people we give gifts to, because we always give books. Maybe not always, but
something that almost everyone's guaranteed to like.
Deal. Okay, I got it.
The Midnight Library. This is about Matt Haig, and it's my first book I've read of Matt Haig. So good. Kind of the idea is that in between life and death, there's a library. And at this library, you have like your person who is talking to you about life and how you thought it went and what do you think's next. Like, just, like coaching you through things. And then you kind of just get the opportunity to like fix things that maybe you wish you had done differently. So you pick up a book off the shelf, and that's like a different life that you could have led if you had chosen this. So it just goes through. Nora Seed is her name, and you just get to go through different life situations with Nora. So there's a little bit of the fantasy there because it's like time travel, but it's not time travel because
it's alternate realities.
Yeah, the alternate realities. It's just phenomenal, and there's a paragraph in here that forever will be like one of my favorite paragraphs of all time. Like, just this book was pretty profound for me. I read it for book club too, and everyone liked it at book club. It's just a good, like, safe bet, and nothing crazy. Like, it's very easy to follow. It starts out very intriguing. In fact, I'm going to read you the first line of this book. Okay.
Eventually, she'll read you the first line.
What in the world? Okay. 27 hours before she decided to die, Nora Seed sat on her dilapidated sofa, scrolling through other people's happy lives, waiting for something to happen. And then out of nowhere, something actually did. So you're kind of hooked from the beginning, right? You want to know what's going on and why she decided not to live and what that amounts to. So, really good book. I highly recommend this book.
Well, not to one-up you, but this is a better book.
I don't know.
Okay, I don't know. I haven't read the Midnight Library.
I actually love this book.
I need to get into it. But if you're just looking for something that anyone's going to like, The Martian is incredibly hard to beat. So, just brief synopsis in case you haven't seen the movie of The Martian. By the way, the movie of The Martian is one of the best adaptations of a book you will ever get. And in fact, they adapted many things word for word straight from the book.
Yeah.
But Andy Weir, the author of The Martian, gives you an idea of what it would be like to be stranded on Mars as you follow whatever his name, Mark Watney. Can't believe I forgot that. You follow Mark Watney, who is accidentally left behind on Mars when the rest of his crew heads back to Earth, and he has to figure out a way to survive. It is really, really, really good. Really, really interesting. Incredibly fast-paced and compelling, and just gives you a sense of what that solitude would be like to be on another planet.
Yeah.
Speaking of first lines in here, let me pull out a first line.
Eventually.
Maybe with a little bit of censorship. I'm pretty much effed. That is the first line. Anyways. Yeah, that's the first line.
Okay, I've got a little bit of a bone to pick with this one.
Okay.
It's sci-fi, right?
Yep.
There's a little bit of jargon, a little bit of words that don't make sense to me. That I'm like, what? That's a lot of science talk. So that was hard for me to like get past. But okay. I listened to it, and I would recommend listening to it just because. Sorry,
good listen.
Get a book for someone. Like, books are awesome. But just because like listening to it, you can just move on really fast, so you don't have to like sit and be like, what did that just mean, and what are these words?
Although on the other side, maybe reading it would have helped you understand in context more of what it was.
You're probably right.
Right. So there is some of that. If you have a basic level of science, kind of maybe for a geek in your life or something like that, really, 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 really good book.
It's a great book.
Even for people who don't read, phenomenal. And I will also point out that the rest of Andy Weir's work is phenomenal as well.
I'm actually surprised you picked The Martian over Project Hail Mary.
I actually think I love Project Hail Mary. I think The Martian's a better book.
Interesting.
I really do.
And I would flop it.
I think that it has a little more basis in reality, and that helps ground it a little bit more.
Okay.
I think also the storyline here is more complex because it has more characters that you're dealing with, and you get the interesting side of it. And one of the things the movie does is the movie gives you both the perspective of Mark Watney and Earth at the same time. The book doesn't do that. You just have Mark Watney's perspective until he makes contact with Earth. And then you get Earth's perspective. And so you get a really good sense of what it would be like to be stranded on Mars without a way to talk to people, without a way to really survive, and just have to try and figure it out. And it does a phenomenal job at that solitude there, all the while making it interesting. And the best part about it is it's incredibly humorous. There's lots of funny parts in here, which is certainly enjoyable.
Definitely.
All right, so these are our recommendations, right? Clearly, we have lots of books that we recommend, but more than anything, I think we recommend books.
Yes.
Right? Books are a phenomenal gift, something that we enjoy, and there's may or may not be a closet full of books that are going to be exchanged here in the next few weeks. But books unlock other worlds for us to be able to visit and peruse, and by sharing that, you're sharing kind of infinite possibilities. So we highly recommend books.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Have a Merry Christmas. Good luck shopping.
Yeah. No, and as always, I'm Blake.
I'm Jamie.
And we're Blamey.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Okay?
I thought it was great.